Let's talk about a modern-day Dunkirk. But forget soldiers on a beach for a second. Imagine the precious cargo is a nation's entire digital memory. This isn't about rescuing people. It's about preserving the very data that defines a country. And today, we're going to walk through the playbook for that exact kind of evacuation. Welcome to the Security Nexus Deep Dive. We're a consultancy that specializes in making sense of complex security challenges, from cyber threats to strategic policy. And today, we are tackling one of the biggest challenges imaginable. So let's just start with a pretty chilling question. What actually happens when an enemy targets not just your military, but the very information that holds your entire society together? Seriously, think about it. Land deeds, medical records, financial systems, state secrets. In our world today, that is the ultimate threat. You know, we're so used to thinking about national power in physical terms, tanks, buildings, roads. But take a look at this. These days, the digital assets are every bit as vital, if not more so. Your infrastructure data, citizen records, state secrets. This is the bedrock of a modern country. If you lose all that, you've pretty much lost the nation itself, even if all the buildings are still standing. And listen, this isn't just a thought experiment. Research from experts like Yichuan Wang, N. Sahabjamnia, and Dorothy Denning shows these kinds of crises are already happening. After the Wenchuan earthquake, for instance, critical building data was just gone. It was impossible to figure out why so many buildings collapsed. Or in Australia, a cyber attack on the railway system left hundreds of thousands of people stranded. The threat is absolutely real, and the consequences are just massive. So, how on earth do you prepare for something like that? Well, surviving a digital catastrophe isn't about getting lucky. It's about having a solid strategic blueprint in place long before that crisis ever hits. As N. Sahib Jamnia and their fellow researchers put it so well, you just can't predict when or how a disaster is going to strike. You can't. So the only logical response is to have a proactive plan ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Because let's be honest, hope is not a strategy. Now, the first part of that strategy is what's called business continuity planning, or BCP. And this is more than just an IT checklist. This is the master plan for the whole organization, for society really, to keep the lights on and make sure the most critical functions can still operate, even when everything is going haywire. The second piece of the puzzle is disaster recovery planning, or DRP. So if BCP is the big proactive strategy for resilience, DRP is the reactive playbook. It's the break glass in case of emergency manual for getting your actual data and your systems back online after you've taken a hit. And what's really fascinating here is that all of this complex planning really boils down to just two critical questions. First, your recovery point objective, or RPO. That's all about data loss. How much data can you afford to lose forever? An hour's worth? A day's worth? And second, your recovery time objective, RTO. This is about downtime. How fast do you have to be back up and running? An hour? A day? Your answers to those two questions literally define your entire strategy. Okay, so a plan is one thing, but you need the right technology to actually pull it off. In our Data Dunkirk scenario, these are the digital lifeboats, the tools that are designed to carry your most precious information to safety. For centuries, we've relied on things like paper archives and centralized servers. But these old systems are just dangerously vulnerable. Paper is a nightmare to search through, and centralized digital servers, well, they create a single, massive, tempting target for an attacker. One successful hit, and poof, everything could be gone. This is where blockchain technology enters the picture. And for a minute, forget about cryptocurrencies. Just think about the core technology itself. It is a decentralized ledger. So instead of storing all your data in one vulnerable spot, you distribute it across hundreds, maybe thousands of computers. That makes it incredibly resilient. And because every block of data is cryptographically changed to the one before it, the data becomes, for all practical purposes, tamper-proof. So how does it get that tamper-proof quality? Well, it's pretty clever. Through this process, all the individual data files are basically condensed into a single, unique digital fingerprint called a hash root. Think of it like a digital wax seal on a letter. If anyone messes with even one tiny piece of the original data, that seal breaks completely, and the tampering becomes immediately obvious to everyone. But here's the thing, not all blockchains are created equal. For something on a national scale, you can't just use a slow public chain like Bitcoin. The data here shows that a private permission network, what's sometimes called an alliance chain, is just way more efficient. The time it takes to securely add data is just a tiny fraction of a public network's, and in a crisis, that speed is absolutely critical. So, you've planned your evacuation, and you've got your digital lifeboats ready to go. But there's one final, absolutely crucial piece to this puzzle. How do you make sure that only the right people can get access to this incredibly sensitive evacuated data? This question. This question gets right to the heart of a huge debate in the security world. Governments, well, they need lawful access for things like wiretaps, but a traditional backdoor can be found and exploited by the bad guys. So the billion-dollar question is, how do you create an access method that is both completely secure and completely accountable? One of the most compelling answers is a concept called key escrow. And the idea is actually pretty simple. The master key needed to decrypt the data isn't held by the government or any single entity. Instead, it's placed in the care of trusted, independent third parties, kind of like a digital safety deposit box. These escrow agents can only release the key under very specific, legally defined conditions, like a court order. And to make this even more secure, you use a principle called split knowledge. You never give the full key to anyone, ever. Instead, you split it into 2 or more pieces. The best analogy is a bank safe deposit box, right? You have a key and the bank manager has a key. Neither key works on its own. You have to have both of them together to open the box. No one person or entity has the power to act alone. The whole process works just like this. A unique key gets created and is instantly split into 2 components. Each half goes to a completely different escrow agent. Now, when law enforcement gets a court order, they have to present it to both agents. Only then will the agents release their separate components, which are then combined inside a secure, specialized device to temporarily reconstruct the key and get the data. It's a system that's just built from the ground up on checks, balances, and accountability. All right, so let's tie all of this together. What does the complete playbook for a successful data Dunkirk actually look like? It really comes down to these 3 pillars. First, you need proactive planning. You have to know exactly how much data loss and downtime you can handle. Second, trusted storage, using decentralized tech like blockchain to build those lifeboats that just can't be easily sunk. And third, controlled access, using systems like key escrow to guarantee that even your rescued data stays secure and is only accessible under the rule of law. To put it as simply as possible, the planning is your strategy. The blockchain is your lifeboat, and key escrow is the authorized access code. You absolutely have to have all 3 of those components working together perfectly for the mission to have any chance of success. And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most critical question of all. This technology gives us a powerful framework for security. But as we move forward, it forces us to ask a really profound question about what governance looks like in the digital age. Who do we as a society ultimately trust to hold the keys to our own collective memory? It's a huge question, and one we're going to continue to explore. To join that conversation and to learn more about the strategic threats we all face, come visit us at thesecuritynexus.net. Thanks for joining this deep dive.